Hello, boxing fans around the world. Thank you for joining me once again here on Talkin Fight for another episode of Boxing News Today. And the big headline of the day is, in fact, Anthony Joshua's fight over at the O2 Arena in London will take place because Robert Helenius, the Nordic Nightmare, has stepped up and accepted the challenge to fight Joshua. This is just a few days, by the way, after Helenius was fighting in Finland and winning. And therefore is, I suppose, quite ready to take on Anthony Joshua. But it'd be interesting to see how the fans react because over in Great Britain, apparently the demand for refunds is quite long. So although Andy Joshua will be in the ring on Saturday, he won't be fighting Dillian Whyte, as we know, who failed a drug test. He will be fighting Robert Helenius, the Nordic Nightmare, which gives us reason to believe now that the fight between Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz Jr. might be able to be settled a lot sooner, because Andy Ruiz Jr., as you know, was clamoring to fight Anthony Joshua as opposed to Dillian Whyte once Dillian Whyte had failed his drug test. So that might be a positive outcome out of the Anthony Joshua affair. Not his fault, Dillian Whyte's fault completely, and I hope he does get banned if found guilty of taking banned substances for the rest of his life. Quickly, realistically, as an outcome of this scenario as well, as reported in boxing247.com, as is often the case when a big-name fighter flunks a drug test either before or after a fight, previous opponents of the busted fighter come out and wonder out loud if there was cheating afoot when they fought the flagged fighter in question. And we saw this quite recently with Conor Benn, with a number of his earlier opponents wondering if he had done something untoward in their fight. Ben, we must stress, has insisted his innocence all the way. Now, with Dillian Whyte's career in serious jeopardy and his big return fight with Anthony Joshua off due to his drug test coming back adverse, a previous opponent of Whyte's, Jermaine Franklin, is suggesting Whyte, quote, was probably doing it when we fought too. Franklin, who dropped a close decision against Whyte in the UK back in November of last year, said it pissed him off when fighters use illegal stimulants to gain the upper hand. He said, like he probably used them when we fought, regarding illegal stimulants. And again, Whyte has insisted he's completely innocent and says he will prove it. Franklin said, I heard this ain't the first time, so I'm figuring he was probably doing it when we fought too. It pissed me off. I got enraged. We train our whole lives, we give it our all, and then people just come in and take advantage and cheat. It's not fair to the ones that live the sport, the ones that really love and take care of the sport. And we have heard that argument time and time again. That's why I am in favor of banning these cheaters, including Conor Benn, from the sport. The World Boxing Council set the two latest world title bouts to be confirmed this week, with one purse bid settled and another announced. The super featherweight and minimum weight classes will soon have title defenses made by their respective champions. Firstly, the World Boxing Council announced that, by its rules and regulations, a purse bid will be held for the rights to organize the match for the world super featherweight champion, O'Shaquie Foster. He's been ordered to face mandatory challenger Eduardo Hernandez, ranked number 1. And it will occur on Tuesday, August 8th. That would be today, during the weekly press conference in Mexico City. And interesting promoters can participate via Zoom. In the minimum weight category, we see that WC has held a purse bid for the mandatory strawweight bout between champion Panya Pradbrisky from Thailand and interim champ Yudai Shagyuko from Japan. Kameda Promotions represents Mr. Fukamachi obtained the rights to promote the bout, and the bid amount of $213,000 outbidding Pech Yindi Boxing Promotions, I imagine out of Thailand, who bid $170,000, I might say. Pradbrisky is coming off a successful defense of his title in June by defeating Japanese challenger Narihito Tanaka by technical knockout in the 8th round. That was held over in Thailand. And Shigioka won the interim title last April by knocking out former Puerto Rican champ Wilfredo Bimbito Mendez in the 7th round. And that was a fight held in Tokyo, Japan. As we all know, 10% of the total bid will be reserved to be paid as a bonus to the winner. Let's move on to a rising star, as we all appreciate in Talkin Fight world. Callum Walsh, King Callum Walsh, out of Cork, Ireland, 7-0, 6 knockouts, will make his first defense of his WBC US Silver Super Welterweight title against El Pitbull, Juan Jose Valesca, 24-4, with 15 knockouts out of Buenos Aires, Argentina, in a scheduled 10-rounder. A main event, by the way, on Saturday, August 26th at the Commerce Casino in Los Angeles, broadcast globally on UFC Fight Pass. It's being presented by Tom Loeffler's 360 Promotions as part of their acclaimed Hollywood Fight Nights events. And there are tickets available. And the Commerce Court Casino, the world's largest card room and site of the LA Poker Classic, is located in Commerce, California. Go to their website for directions how to get there if you live in the hood. Otherwise, buy your pay-per-view from Fight Pass. Let's have a quick look here. The original opponent for Walsh, by the way, Livan Navarro, suffered a training injury and had to withdraw from the title fight. The more experienced Velasco has battled numerous world champions and top contenders, including Regis Prograis, Zachary Okia, Elvis Rodriguez, and Mario Barrios. The upset-minded Argentinian looks to return to the win column against their heralded Walsh, following a hotly contested split decision loss against Flavius Blee on May 5th, 2023, and that was a fight held in Romania. Let's move along to David Benavidez. Looks like David Benavidez and former 2-division world champion Demetrius Andrade will have a fight in either November or December. It'll be interesting to see if this fight actually happens, because both guys have recently avoided taking risky fights, and neither of them could choose to drag their fight into negotiations to make sure this match doesn't take place. Andrade finally gets a good fight after turning down Zach Parker and Janabek Alamkounouli. Both were bad career moves on Andrade's part to turn down those fights, because it showed he was being hypocritical and has been complaining about how Canelo Alvarez avoided him and other top guys. Then he's offered tough opposition, turns them down, and chooses to play it safe. Benavidez, 27-0, will defend his WBC interim super middleweight title against the unbeaten Andrade, 32-0, 19 knockouts, with the winner to be mandatory to champion Canelo Alvarez. Says Julius Julianus, sources close to the operation tell me that David Benavidez will go against Demetrius Andrade in one of the last months of this year. Jaime Munguia's handlers have chosen not to fight Benavidez. Benavidez recently beat former IBF super middleweight champ Caleb Plant in a grueling contest last March. Plant dominated the first half, but then ran out of gas and got worked over in the last 6 rounds. This fight is happening because Benavidez chose not to take the risky match against WBA regular super middleweight champ David Morrell Jr., who made him look avoidant and scared by not agreeing to face him after he called him out. Morrell exposed a side of Benavidez we hadn't seen, showing that he's not willing to take a risk in a 50-50 fight. Alrighty. When Edgar Berlanga officially announced that he is promoted free agent, practically every prominent figure in the boxing world picked up the phone and gave him a call. From Al Heyman to Oscar De La Hoya, everyone wanted to get their hands on the talented 26-year-old. Although they were all enticing, there was something about Eddie Hearn's offer that made Berlanga double back. Talks may have taken several months, but the super middleweight contender placed pen to paper and agreed to join Hearn's matchroom stable. For Berlanga, the bills weren't simply going to pay themselves, and the Puerto Rican native clearly pointed out that zeros at the end of his matchroom paycheck played a part in his signing. However, it wasn't the biggest reason. For a while now, Berlanga, 21-0, 16 knockouts, has stated that he would love to get his hands on Canelo Alvarez. Hearn, coincidentally, had a track record of working with Alvarez, actually. Just a few short months ago, the longtime promoter facilitated a matchup between Alvarez and John Ryder, with Hearn dangling a showdown against Alvarez in Berlanga's face. The 26-year-old realizing that signing with Hearn would be in his best interest. For the most part, Berlanga's deal with Matchroom had been shrouded in mystery. However, during a recent interview, Berlanga shed a bit of light on his current contract and how he was given full autonomy on its structure, and how Alvarez was promised to him. 3, said Berlanga, when asked how many fights he's contractually obligated to give Matchroom, and one of those is Canelo. It was either fight one fight, then fight Canelo, or we're going to fight 2 fights, then fight Canelo. So far, Berlanga took care of business in the first third of his deal, winning a unanimous decision against Jason Quigley. But while it appeared as though he was closer than ever before landing a title shot against the sport's biggest star, Alvarez hit the boxing world with unexpected news. Just a few days before taking on Quigley, Alvarez revealed that he had signed a 3-fight deal with Al Haymon's Premier Boxing Champions. In the first fight of his new deal, Alvarez will fight off against Jermall Charlo. That's taking place on September 30th. Nothing is set in stone as of yet in terms of his 2 subsequent bouts, but names such as David Benavidez, Jermall Charlo, Errol Spence Jr., and David Morrell, all of which are connected with PBC, are expected to have a strong shot at landing a showdown against Alvarez. Essentially, Berlanga is the odd man out. Hearn, though, could placate Berlanga by lining him up against the likes of Triple G, Gennady Golovkin, Jaime Munguia, John Ryder, and several others. Yet, for Berlanga, he doesn't understand why everyone is laughing in his face as though he lost his chance to face Alvarez. With 3 fights for Alvarez that will likely be associated with Showtime pay-per-view, Berlanga is convinced that despite Hearn having a non-existent relationship with Heyman, he will face Alvarez at some point next year. He said, "I'm going to be one of those 3. We can still make that fight happen. Eddie just got to sit down, go over to PBC, Al Heyman, and we get a fight with Showtime pay-per-view." As we all know, Matchroom is currently signed with DAZN, so it's going to make it a bit difficult. But I'm sure they can work things out. Money talks, bullshit walks. Okay. GBM Sports is delighted to announce the all-action Doncaster boxing star Reese Mould will make the first defense of his WBA Continental Lightweight Championship on Friday, the 6th of October in Sheffield. He headlines a double title show that also features a fiery Commonwealth Super Flyweight Championship showdown between rivals Emma Dolan and Nicola Hopewell. Rising prospects Naphtali Nemhard, Adam Muhammad, Will Cawley, and Noman Hossein, with even more talent to be added to the show at a later date to be announced. So, bringing excitement every time he fights, Mould inflicted the first defeat to Bradford rival Hamad Gans in a pulsating fight back in February this year. So there you go. Some good news out of England and some of their rising stars. Let's go across the pond to Maryland that we talked about the other day regarding Tank Davis. 3 showdowns featuring a rising prospect and 2 former title challengers will headline the Showtime Boxing Countdown this upcoming Saturday night, same Saturday, I believe, as Anthony Joshua goes into the ring, from the theater at MGM National Harbor in National Harbor, Maryland, USA. Live action streamed on the Showtime Sports YouTube channel and Facebook page will be topped by rising prospect Michael Angeletti, 8-0, against fellow unbeaten Jonathan Lopez, 8-0, in an 8-round bantamweight affair. The lineup will also see former title challenger Jose Benavidez Jr., 27-1, against Sladan Janjanin. He's 36-15, 26 knockouts, though, in a 10-round middleweight bout, plus former title challenger Damian Vasquez, 16-3-1, against Joel Nil Borez, 12-8-2, in an 8-round bantamweight showdown. These fights precede a Showtime Championship Boxing triple header headlined by former world champion Emmanuel Rodriguez against streaking contender Melvin Lopez for the vacant IBF bantamweight title. The non-televised undercard lineup will feature former title challenger Jesse Hart facing Elio Trotsky in a 10-round light heavyweight clash. Very good. One last story out of Philadelphia, written by Ken Hissner out of BoxingNews24.com. The city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, has had 34 world boxing champions, with the latest to fall from grace was WBC and WBO super bantamweight champ Stephen Cool Boy Steph Fulton, running into a monster in Japan in July in Japan's IBF, WBO, WBC world bantamweight champion Naoya Monster Inoue, who dethroned Fulton in the 8th. Give Fulton credit for winning the IBO Super Bantamweight title back in 2019, and 2 fights later, adding the WBO World Super Bantamweight title in 2021. Fulton made one defense of both titles in 2022, defeating Daniel Roman, 29-3, by the way. And then a little over a year later, met his conqueror, one of the best pound-for-pound boxers in the world, in Inoue. Per the website, Philly Boxing History, Philly's first world champion was Danny Doherty at Bantam in 1900. One who followed was one of the very best in Philadelphia, Jack O'Brien at light heavy in 1905, Harry Lewis at welter in 1908, and battling Levinsky at light heavy in 1916. Then it took 11 years before Benny Bass captured the feather title in 1927. Another great came along in that year, Tommy Phantom of Philly Loughran at light heavy, Midget Wolgast at flyweight 1930, Jenny Jadek Jr. welter in 1932, Bob Montgomery light in 1943, and Percy Bassett at feather in 1953. Then a personal friend of the authors, Harold Johnson at light heavy in 1961, and then came Sonny Liston at heavy in 1962. In 1963, one of Philadelphia's favorites, Joey Girardelli, became champ at middle. In 1968, the 1964 Olympian champ Smokin' Joe Frazier became champ. In 1979, Matthew Saad Muhammad became light heavy champ. In 1980, Jolton Jeff Chandler became bantam champ. In 1984, Charlie Choo Choo Brown won the light title that same year. Terrible Tim Witherspoon from our very own Friday night panel won the heavy title also in that year. I first met him, says the author, at Ali's Deer Lake camp. In 1986, 2 became champs in Gary Hinton at junior welter and Buster Drayton at junior middle as well. In the 1984 Olympic champ, by the way, Meldrick Taylor won at junior welter in 1988, along with Robert Bam Bam Hines at junior middle in 1993. Fred Fearless Pendleton won the world title. And, says the author, I managed him for one fight, winning the PA Pennsylvania state title in 1985. Then in 1995, Bernard, the executioner Hopkins, took the middle and later the light heavy title, followed by Nate Mr. Miller at cruiser in the same year. In 1997, Charles Hatchet Brewer won at super middle and was the only one to defend his world title at the legendary Blue Horizon. Moving quite along here. My goodness, so many names, so many titles. But let's get along here. Now we come to what I call the most avoided boxer in the welter division, the IBF interim champion, Jaron Bouts Ennis, 31-0 with 28 stoppages, chomping at a bit for the title against Terrence Crawford. And whether Bud moves up to super welter or gives a rematch to now former champ Errol Spence, whom he destroyed, only time will tell. Ennis is trained by his father, Bozy, who trained at his other 2 sons, Derek Pooh, who held the IBF USBA middle title, and Farah, who held the NABF super middle title. Ennis has called out Crawford, but while waiting, wants to fight Lithuania's Aimastanas Stanistonis, 14-1, who holds a WBA regular title. Ennis could also be looking at Cuban Jordanius 54 Milagros Yugas, 27-5, who lost his WBA Super World title to Spence, or Keith One-Time Thurman, my choice, 30-1, who lost his WBA Super World title to Manny Pacman Pacquiao, now a promoter. Defeating any one of these 3 would prepare him better for Crawford if the champ stays at welter. There you have it, with Philly without and looking for another world champion. All right, boxing fans, thanks for joining me here on Talkin Fight. Appreciate it very much. Remember to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we'll see you later on when I join Mike Orr for his show, Knuckle Up, at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you.